Good afternoon. This is Peter Lopresti, proud member of the Stoic team and realtor with Exit Strategy Realty.
Peter Georgitsis from Preferred Rate, a proud member of the Stoic team.
Today we're going to be talking about the Fed meeting that just concluded today. I'm coming back from a work trip in Denver. And in Denver, it was very interesting. The hotel that I stayed at was across the street from the Fed, and a quick walking distance to where the Denver Mint is, which is one of the only mints in the United States that's still in operation. And I just love thinking about the relationship between these two institutions. At one point, the Denver, named after the Denver Nuggets, we would go ahead and take gold straight from the mountains, mint it into bullion. It was 1 ounce of gold equal 20 US dollars. And that's how we would go ahead and move the economy by basically the role of the government was just to certify that the gold had a certain purity and facilitate trade between people. Of course, as I was in Denver over the weekend and noting, I was there just yesterday, actually, while the meeting was going on, just thinking of the relationship of change of power between these two things. The economy is no longer really controlled by supply and demand. It's more so by interest rates that that the Fed gets to make up of how much they lend money to us, and then of course they also get to decide how much money they print out of thin air without having to have any gold or silver or anything to support that. Of course, unsurprisingly, it's led into this record inflation that we've had during my entire life. I've never had inflation this high in my entire adult life, but yet here we are. Peter, a little bit of good news, even though the Fed the US government has printed more dollars from 2020 until now. So in the 3 years of the pandemic, we printed more US dollars than we had from 1776 until 2020.
That's an amazing stat.
And so, it's always interesting to think of as the money works its way through the system, who gets to benefit and who doesn't get to benefit. And almost always, it's always a little guy who never gets to benefit. In 2008, rather than just giving the money straight to the homeowner so that they could go ahead and pay all the banks, what we did was bailed out all the banks who then went ahead and took all the homes from the homeowners anyways. So with that in mind, we are finally hearing a little bit of good news that's available to the everyday person, the everyday investor, or the person who's looking to get onto the first-time home buying ladder. So, Peter, please talk to us a little bit about how the inflation is working in the United States, how the Fed is taking this information to work it into how much they're going to lend us the money next year, and basically a little bit of how the whole system works.
Well, thank you, Peter, for the intro. So, one of the objectives that we always have is kind of give you an indication where the market's at economically, specifically for interest rates. And we also talk about programs that will benefit. And also affordable housing, that's the goal that for our audience is that there's hope that, there's light at the end of the tunnel for them to be able to afford a home. It's kind of interesting because, we always talk about the Federal Reserve, and the committee that dictates the monetary policy is called Federal Open Market Committee. And we just call them the Federal Reserve, but there is specifically that group that dictates where the rates are going to go. And they have an impact on all rates, not just the rate that we get on our mortgages, we specifically talk about, but, credit cards, short-term things, car payments. So that has an impact across the board on all levels, not just mortgages. But it was kind of interesting, Peter, because one of the things that I was doing analysis, one of the things about the end of the year, it's about reflection. The holidays are coming, it's supposed to be a joyful time. We kind of had a gloom and doom kind of attitude about the economy because it all impacts everybody, not just us. Housing is down. It impacts people building houses, using material. So across the board. But what's really significant about today, and this is how I felt in a negative way in March of 2022 when the Fed started increasing short-term rates. So like right now, as an example, in July of 22, our inflation rate was 9%. As of October, the latest data of 2023, inflation is in check at 3.24. So we have really made great strides. Now, the only thing about the news today about the Federal Reserve talking about that they're going to project cutting 3 times in 24. Now, it's almost like it's not a fixed thought, meaning now they're talking about that projection, but they're also commenting on that if they see things getting out of control, again, they have the right to to either not cut or even increase. Now, that strong tone in their voices had really more of an impact in previous months, but we've had 3 holds on increasing rates in the last 3 meetings. Today was the 3rd meeting that they held steady. So, but they also projected their cuts, which is what had a positive result on the stock market. Now, one of the things that we talked about earlier, how quickly will that affect the rates that homeowners will get? Now, the bonds dictate what the homeowners are going to get as rates, mortgage-backed securities. So at this point, what's really a good thing is the attitude shifting from, oh my God, to, okay, we can see the light coming. So our audience that have listened to us and are loyal to us, the good news is it's coming. And so logically, when the rates come down, it become more affordable. So the group of people that lost out when the rates started rising from 3%, 4, 5, 6, 7, about a month ago, we had rates in the 8.25. Rates are down closer to 7.375, so they've and 7.25. So they've gone down a full point since our last conversation. So this is all good news for the future. Groups are projecting what rates are going to do. Some are saying as low as 6% by the end of next year, in December of 2024. I think they're going to start cutting really more in the summertime, which is going to have an impact on the election. Remember, 24 is going to be a big year for all of us, so in a good way. But then, so it's a good thing what's happening today.
Absolutely. And again, just to talk a little bit more about the relationship between what the Fed says and what let's say the retail at the end of the day, what it actually looks like for the consumer.
Peter, you're muted.
Okay, what about now? Perfect. Just wanted to discuss about the last time that we were able to go ahead and talk about the Fed. The Fed at that point, they simply just said that they were not going to increase interest rates. And that kind of had an effect on the retail of seeing the interest rates kind of fall over the last 5 weeks for most of the actual interest rates on our clients at the very end.
Yeah.
Because, of course, I just want everyone to be aware, we've done this before, but we'll just do a quick recap. That the Fed, they're really talking about how they lend money from themselves to large financial banking institutions, who then even lend it to smaller banking institutions, who then lend it to credit unions and even smaller lending institutions. And then finally, we get our own little, mortgage products for ourselves and our clients. And so when the Fed says that the interest rates are going down, as Peter has educated us before, it doesn't mean that they're going to go and decrease the interest rate on your mortgage. It just means that the rate at which money is lent within the system is going to go down. And of course, the goal is at the end of the day, it's going to work its way through towards the actual consumer and work your way for a lower mortgage payment for you, lowers interest rate on your mortgage. So Peter, I know, of course, after seeing the last 2 years of seeing the interest rates just continuously a straight line up. For me, I felt a little bit of relief over the last 5 weeks seeing the interest rate go down. And then also this news today where they're explicitly saying they're going to decrease the interest rate. Was it 3 times next year?
Yes, that's a projection.
A projection. And of course, I know the Fed, I grew up Catholic, so I like to read symbols, and they like to communicate in symbols, which is good. They never like to commit to anything that they're going to say. And so you're always kind of trying to read the tea leaves with what they're saying. But even then, when they're hinting at decreasing 3 times, whereas up until this point, they've only said we're going to increase, the most neutral that we got was simply them saying they're not going to increase. This is a huge change. This is hopefully a huge turning of the tide for a lot of our clients. If you're a first-time home buyer who've been outpriced, it's very sad to see, let's say, 2 people work at the same company. Someone bought a house 2 years ago, and with the same salary, they were able to afford it. And now, their friend who has the same job, the same salary today isn't able to afford that home because of these high interest rates. And it sounds like, every single month coming up, it's going to become more and more affordable. More and more people are going to be able to get into these homes. Now, of course, my fear is that prices are going to start going up as quickly as they did 2 years ago as well. So please, my goal is, as I also own lots of property. I do lots of rentals. So one of my properties, we rented it for $1,100 a month 2 years ago. We put it up for this year, and we had 18 people apply for it. And the guy who we picked, they offered to pay 6 months of rent in advance. And so, unfortunately, rentals are getting very, very competitive, more competitive than I think I've ever seen as we work with both rentals and buyers and sellers. This is really a great time to try to take advantage of these first-time home buyer opportunities that were kind of created because of how high the interest rates are, while they're still around and available to you. Peter, do you have any advice, let's say, of how to interpret this?
Yeah, so that's a really good point. So what you have to remember, even though we've been focused on the Federal Reserve, there's there's two camps. The Federal Reserve, who, like we talked about extensively about what their jobs are, and then bond traders. Then bond traders trade based on some information on what the Feds are going to do or other economic events like wars and items like that. So you're having these two camps, and sometimes they don't have the same philosophy. So you got to be cautious that people realize it's not just the Feds, but how the bond traders interpret it. Like that's a perfect example, Peter. So when they held steady and not increase rates, short-term rates in the October-November meeting, I'll call it the October-November meeting, that kind of shown the bond traders, wait a minute, they're not going to increase. But prior to that meeting, there was negative information that they were going to increase it maybe another quarter. So you saw rates about 2 weeks before that meeting that it happened in November from 7.375 all the way to 8.25. So because the bond traders made assumption that they're going to increase it, they want to get ahead of it, right? And remember, nothing happens today. Bad news when it happens, it becomes immediate. Like if God forbid there's a fire somewhere, there's a fire truck, immediately go there, right? They know the damage. So, but like we know as human beings, our nature is if we don't have to get to it today and there's no urgency, we won't get to it. Like I know I have to work out until God forbid my doctor tells me you have heart disease or you're overweight, you got to start working out or you're going to die. Then when I'm going to start working out. So human nature has a play here. So right now, the good news, the bond traders took the information and the Federal Reserve was really cautious in their tone. So now they can't lie anymore. Their tone has changed. They're saying, listen, we're going to have 3 cuts. So the word cut is different from raising them. So that's why the bond traders are being more aggressive. And what has really have an impact today is stocks, because stocks now the guys who own the company will eventually pay less cost, will trickle down to the consumer, and then it gives more value to them because they can produce goods cheaply than what they're doing now. Again, you should be paying less in the gas, less at the store, and that's what's going to have an impact across the board. And then you'll see the rates gradually come down naturally. Now, again, we talked about earlier that, whoever projects interest rates for next year, they're talking about in the low 6s, which is significant. Now, remember, a normal market, a good, healthy economy is between 5.5 and 6.5. And even 7 is not bad. But so we're going to be right there for people to feel confident buying.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Peter. And of course, knowing that they're already saying the interest rate's going to go down lower and lower, ideally 3 times, it means that ideally, like you said, people who are currently, stuck in high interest rates, but were able to take advantage of, let's say, the many first-time home buyer opportunities that are available to them, they're going to eventually be able to, when interest rates, who knows, go below 6 even, come back, go ahead and refinance.
100%.
They get to stay in their house. It's not like they have to move. The only thing that changes is your monthly payment, and most of the people who do it, they do it because it's going down. So again, I think one of the last things that we want to definitely talk about is, besides the fact that the interest rates are going to go down, so it's going to help people qualify for more house. At the same time, if you bought at a very high interest rate, this is the time to start reaching out to Peter Georgitis, again, of Peter, a preferred rate. He'll be able to let you know what your interest rate is right now and what he can get you and how much you can lower your payment.
Thank you for that. But remember, Pete, one of the things that we always try to educate people, and we try to do it very honestly and full disclosure, we're talking about rates going down. But the other thing that the impact would be is that if people sit there and go, I'll just wait for the 3rd time to go down. And I get it. But the problem is what the truth of it is that there's not a lot of homes out there, supply. And because of basic economics, when there's not a lot of supply, there's going to be a greater demand, which will increase the prices of the home. So even though you might benefit with the rates coming down, and if you don't buy it, come into the market, you're going to lose out on the price. And you might outprice yourself because the price of the home's out. That's why affordable housing is becoming an issue in this country, because there's a lot of areas that, unfortunately, even if you have 2 or 3 people working in the household, they still might not be able to afford the house because the price of the home have gone up in the areas that they want to buy.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for that, Peter. I think all of our listeners were able to kind of get the key points from this. That the Fed, the rate, the meeting concluded today. They hinted at lowering 3 times over the next year. There is several influential banks that are predicting interest rates to be, as low as 6 by the end of next year, and that they're going to be a gradual decline. And again, my big takeaway for that is, if you are interested in buying and you're on the sidelines, please, please, please come to us, get pre-approved, get your search set out. It is, it is very sad for me to, I'll work with people who have perhaps spent their entire life saving up and getting ready. They're ready to have kids, and they're just, not able to find the space for them to get to the next phase of their life. And so we are here to be able to help you. We are here to work with you. And again, the conditions are always changing. So the most important is that we talk to you, we know what your goals are, and then we're able to let you know, as soon as the right opportunity for you and your family comes along, we'll reach out to you and let you know that it's time to go ahead and move on this. So again, this is Wednesday, December 13th. This is Peter Lopresti, real estate agent with Exit Strategy Realty, member of the Stoic team.
Peter Georgitzis from Preferred Rate, private member of the Stoic team.
Thank you, everyone, and have a great afternoon.